This is the story of a girl named Paula who is very intelligent. She always topped in her school and college. She was becoming a doctor, and due to topping her 4th year as well, she received an offer to complete her final year at a very prestigious university called the University of Heidelberg. She was very happy and went to share this news with her grandpa, who was admitted to the hospital at that time. Hearing this news, he became very happy and told her that getting an opportunity to go to such a good university doesn't come to everyone easily. Don't miss this chance. I was also a part of this university, and it is famous for its research work, he said. When Paula goes home, she tells this news to her mom and dad. The strange thing was that her dad was not happy with her scholarship, nor was he pleased with her decision to go to the University of Heidelberg. This made Paula sad, and her mom couldn't bear to see her sadness. Finally, they gave Paula permission to go to the university. The scene cuts to the University of Heidelberg, where a man was lying on an operating table. The doctors were perhaps performing surgery on him, and during the operation, he suddenly regained consciousness. When he saw that the doctors were taking out his body parts one by one, he was shocked. He wanted to stop them with his hands, but his hands couldn't move. He tried to open his mouth to speak, but he couldn't utter a word and died like that. Here, we see Paula on a train heading to Heidelberg. On the train, she meets another student from the University of Heidelberg named Gretchen. Due to Gretchen's friendly nature, she and Paula quickly become friends. The train was speeding towards Heidelberg when suddenly there was a commotion about someone having a heart attack. Paula, who was almost a doctor, handled the emergency situation. She performed CPR and provided some emergency treatment, saving the person's life just in time. Afterwards, we see that the person, a guy named David, is fine and continues the journey with Paula. David thanks Paula for saving his life. Finally, they arrive at the university, and Paula is overwhelmed with joy at seeing such a large and magnificent university. Paula decides to stay in the university hostel with Gretchen. After that, the two of them took a tour of the university. As they walk, they reach a morgue where dead bodies are kept. As soon as they arrive, a dead body suddenly starts shaking violently, shocking Paula. Her two companions, who had come with her, get scared and run away, but Paula was not scared at all because she knows that a body can only move if it receives electric impulses. She goes near the body and starts investigating the reason for its movement. When she removes the sheet from the body, she is stunned for a few minutes because the body has no head. However, she continues to investigate the reason for its movement. Upon thoroughly checking the body, she notices some wires and a chip attached to it. Following the wires, she reaches a secret room where some seniors are sitting, conducting a prank to scare people. They were using electric impulses to make the body move, which was the reason for its shaking. Because Paula wasn't scared, the seniors were impressed by her bravery and invited her to a party that night, where her friend Gretchen also came. Gretchen had also invited David, the guy from the train. David, who had come to the university to party, had no idea that this would be his last fun night. As soon as David enters the dormitory, an unknown person injects something, making him unconscious. No one knew who this person was, and they dragged David's body away. The people partying outside were unaware of this. Paula and Gretchen also had a lot of fun at the party, so much so that Gretchen forgot she had invited David. In the next scene, we see David lying on a dissection table, with two doctors nearby discussing dissecting David, meaning they were talking about cutting up his body and removing its parts. At this moment, David regains consciousness. To save himself, David grabs a blade kept nearby. As soon as one of the doctors approaches him to inject something, David quickly attacks him and tries to escape. However, the other doctor attacks him from behind and kills him. The next day, Paula had her first class at the university, where the first lecture was given by Professor Grombeck. He told them that their university is renowned worldwide for its research and that the doctors graduating from their university are among the best in the world. He said, "In the coming years, your name will also be among these best doctors. It is our responsibility to provide you with the best knowledge and education, and we will also give you hands-on experience." The doctor then takes them to the anatomy dissection room, where doctors experiment on dead bodies. Here, they see many human skeletons. Professor Grombeck tells them that these skeletons are fake, although they look very real. Paula notices her grandpa's name written under one of the skeletons. Excited, she tells Professor Grombeck that the skeleton was made by her grandfather. In response, Professor Grombeck says, "Surely, he must have been a very talented student of this university and probably did a lot of research work after becoming a professor." Hearing this, Paula feels very proud of her grandpa. Finally, the time comes for the students to perform postmortems themselves. Paula is shocked when she sees the dead body in front of her because it is none other than the man whose life she had saved just 2 days earlier. Professor Grombeck instructs Paula to remove the man's heart. Instead, Paula questions him, asking how this man died since there are no marks on his body to indicate he died of a disease. Professor Grombeck scolds her and tells her to focus on her work, saying it's not her concern how the man died, as he might have been prepared for research purposes. Hearing this, Paula and Gretchen start working, but both feel something is amiss. To find out more, they secretly take David's blood samples. In the lab, when they research the blood, Paula discovers some very strange chemicals in it. Chemicals that are not found in a normal human body. Paula discusses this matter with a friend and asks him to identify the chemical. The guy tells her that he will need some tissue samples from the body in addition to the blood to determine the chemical, to which Paula agrees. For her mission, Paula goes to the morgue, retrieves David's body from the freezer, and steals some tissue samples. During this time, she notices a triple mark on David's foot. She is almost done with her task when the morgue attendant suddenly arrives. Startled, Paula makes up a lie, saying that Professor Grombeck sent her there. She then asks the attendant who brought David's body to the morgue. The attendant responds that he cannot disclose this information to a student due to university policies. The person, who had by now realized that Paula was investigating David's death, informs someone about it over the phone. It is likely that he is informing David's murderer about Paula's investigation. In the next scene, we see Paula and her friend Gretchen in the library, discussing David's death. Paula recalls the AAA marks on David's body and starts researching them in the books. She finds out that this is the sign of a secret society that conducted illegal experiments on living people for medical science research. This society targeted individuals who already had a major illness so they could observe the changes in the human body due to the disease, conduct research on it, and then use the dead body for other research purposes. It turns out that the skeletons shown in the previous scene were also made from these people, which helped students understand their concepts better. The name of this society was the Anti-Hippocratic Society, and it had been operating for many years with deep ties to the University of Heidelberg. Initially, they only experimented on sick people, but as time passed and during World War II, they also used innocent and defenseless people for these research purposes. Now Paula suspects that this society is still operating at the University of Heidelberg, and the people associated with it have definitely murdered David because he was a heart patient. Gretchen narrates her theory as a story, mentioning that all these stories exist in books and can't have any effect. David must have been killed by one of his enemies. While they were discussing this, Paula receives a call from her friend, who informs her that David was killed by a chemical that quickly dissipates in the human body, causing all the blood to clot and making the body heavier in plastic. This explains why all the skeletons in the lab were in the same condition for so many years. Paula feels sad knowing that there is a big game going on at the university. She decides to inform Professor Grombeck about it, but he scolds her again, saying he had warned her to stay away from David's case and focus on her studies. He questions why she can't understand that it's her final year and she should concentrate on her studies. Now Paula returns to her room and notices that her entire bed is filled with blood. There are also candles underneath it. She feels like it's somehow connected to a ritual, and suspects it's the work of the Anti-Hippocrates Society. She goes back to the lab and researches from a book, discovering that when the members of the Anti-Hippocrates Society want to punish someone, they first leave blood and candles under their bed as a warning. If the person still interferes with their work, they make 3 cuts on their legs during the second warning, 3 cuts on their mouth for the third warning, and finally, if they persist, they kill them. This time, instead of dividing the body in the usual manner, they divide it into 3 parts. When she returns to her room, she finds a boy named Hein, Gretchen's boyfriend, who tells her that Gretchen is not in the room at the moment. In response, she says she knows and is there just to convince her, as he loves him very much. Although he knows she is deceiving him, he still wants to give her another chance at this moment. At this time, we were watching Gretchen, who was in the house with another guy for quite some time. When Gretchen doesn't come back to her room, Hein comes here to search for her. And when he sees him with another boy, in jealousy, he injects an odd chemical injection into the other boy, killing him instantly. Not only this boy, but he also injected Gretchen with the same injection. To save himself, he attempts to leave here, but he feels like all the blood in his body is drying up. She can't do anything for herself and succumbs right there. After that, he first cleans up Gretchen and the boy's blood from this dead house, and then puts them both in the freezer. Even after putting them in the freezer, he was afraid that people would recognize them, so he cut both their throats. In the morning, we see that the news of the disappearance of both Gretchen and the boy is in the university. Paula is also looking for her friends, and while doing so, she reaches the morgue, where she finds the diary of the morgue attendant. Here she finds out that the boy who brought David to this dead house was the one who had done 2 murders recently. Hein was sitting in front of her. Seeing him, she gets worried. And at this time, Hein holds her friend's severed finger in front of her to threaten her to drop the David case, otherwise she'll face the same fate as her friend. Frightened by all this, she immediately goes to the police station and tells the police to write a report on her friend's death. But the police don't listen to her. Upon returning from the police station, she receives a message from Hein that she should meet him at the morgue. There, Hein shows her Gretchen's body, which terrifies her deeply. He was attacking the corpses with his blade so that Paula gets scared and doesn't tell anyone about him. Paula, frightened, runs away from there, and he was continuously following her. While running, she reaches the basement, where she finds the same injection filled with chemicals that were used to kill people. Trembling with fear, she picks up the injection, and at that moment, Professor Grombeck returns. Thinking that it's Hein who is trying to kill her, she hastily forwards the injection. But Professor Grombeck calmly tells her to relax and listen to him. Professor Grombeck also knew that Paula was continuously researching the Anti-Hippocrates Society. So here, he reveals the reality of this society to her and tells her that he is also a part of this society. He explains that this society has been conducting research in medical science for many years, and if it weren't for this society, medical science wouldn't have progressed so much. Hearing this, Paula is astonished to learn that her grandfather was also a member of this society and was behind many significant researches. Even the chemical that transforms humans into plastic was created by him. Upon learning this, Paula is not in a state of excitement as she used to idolize her grandfather and believed he was a killer like them. She wanted to talk to her grandfather about this, but unfortunately, he passed away on the same day. In the next scene, we see a meeting of the Anti-Hippocrates Society, where an investigation was launched, not for the sake of justice, but for the Hein had done of eliminating 2 individuals who were not even sick and were not the targets of the society. He used the authority given by the society for his personal enmity and revenge, posing a threat to the society itself. Meanwhile, Hein tells the society members that whatever he is doing it for their benefit. In response, Professor Grombeck denies, telling him that he should put 3 cuts on his own body as punishment. In a fit of rage, he puts the 3 cuts on his own mouth and leaves angrily. Upon hearing this, the society members decide to hand him over to the police. This decision fills Hein with even more furies. He didn't want to go to jail. So, that night, he goes to Professor Grombeck's house and murders him. Paula, who was at her home at that time due to her grandfather's funeral, searches through his room, where she confirms that he was also a part of the Anti-Hippocrates Society. This revelation deeply saddens her. Now, to vent her sorrow, she goes to a friend who consoles her. In the morning, she noticed that her friend also had many items similar to those from the Anti-Hippocrates Society, meaning he was also a part of the society. Angered by this revelation, she beats up the boy and flees to the laboratory basement of the university where the Anti-Hippocrates Society members used to work. There, she finds many skeletons made from human bodies. She also encounters the same boy, Hein, who had committed 3 murders before, and is now making a skeleton of Gretchen, Paula's friend, who was frightened and screamed loudly before running away. Before she can run away from here, he gives her an injection. When she regains consciousness, she found herself over the test section table where nobody had survived before. She tries to move her hands but realizes they won't move, and she's slowly losing consciousness. She realizes she's been injected with the same chemical that turns human blood into plastic. She had known about this chemical before and also knew its antidote. She sees her friend arriving and is surprised, but then realizes he wasn't a member of the Anti-Hippocrates Society. He had come to research over this society. Paula quickly explains the situation to him and asks for his help. She tells him to bring sodium chloride quickly. The boy agrees and brings an injection of sodium chloride, which he administers to her. Just as she was being injected, another boy arrives, a member of the Anti-Hippocrates Society, who knocks Paula's friend unconscious and starts discussing dismembering Paula's body into 2 parts. Despite the chemical injections, Paula remains conscious. Just as the others lift her friend onto the dissection table, Paula attacks the other boy, injecting him with the same injection, causing him to lose consciousness. Enraged, the boy tries to attack her with a surgical blade, but Paula manages to evade, grabbing a high-voltage wire from a breaker box behind her and electrocuting him. Hein's other companion had already died due to the chemical that Paula injected. Paula rushes to the hospital with her friend, saving his life. The story ends by revealing that the Anti-Hippocrates Society has recruited 2 more members who will continue their mission to kill and work as doctors. This implies that Paula's battle is not yet over, showing this movie concludes. I hope you have liked this movie recap. Please like, share and subscribe for more real recaps.